When I walked into that courtroom, my daughter Olivia leaned toward her husband, Adrian, and whispered something that made them both smile. They thought I was finished. They believed the woman standing before them was simply an aging widow who had finally become too weak to defend herself. Then the judge looked up. His eyes met mine, and the color drained from his face. For several seconds, he said nothing. The courtroom became strangely quiet. Then he whispered 4 words. "I know this woman." Adrian stopped smiling. Olivia slowly turned toward me. For the first time in months, I saw uncertainty in my daughter's eyes. But that moment came later, much later, before the courtroom, before the secrets, before the money and betrayal. There was a house. My house. The house where I had spent nearly 40 years building a life. Every morning, I woke at 6. I would walk into the kitchen, fill my old kettle, and reach for the chipped blue mug my husband, Arthur, had bought me during our first year of marriage. The mug wasn't valuable. Neither were the curtains, worn sofa, or faded photographs lining the hallway, but every object carried a memory. Arthur had died 2 years earlier. After 42 years together, his absence had changed the sound of the house. Sometimes I still expected to hear him humming in the workshop. Sometimes I caught myself preparing 2 cups of coffee. Then I would remember I was alone, at least, that's what I believed. My daughter, Olivia, visited occasionally. She had once been the center of my world. I had worked 2 jobs to keep her in school. I cleaned offices at night, baked pies for church fundraisers, and repaired neighbors' clothing for extra money. I never complained. Everything I earned went toward giving Olivia a better life, so when she called one Thursday afternoon and said she wanted to visit with her husband, I was delighted. I spent hours preparing Arthur's favorite chicken casserole. I placed fresh flowers on the table and brought out the embroidered tablecloth I had made when Olivia was 16. When they arrived, however, something felt wrong immediately. Adrian didn't greet me warmly. He walked into the living room, sat in Arthur's old chair, and turned on the television. Olivia remained near the doorway. "Mom," she said, "we need to talk." I smiled nervously. "Of course, dinner is almost ready." "This isn't about dinner." Her tone was cold. I looked from her to Adrian. "What happened?" Adrian muted the television. "We've been thinking about your situation." "My situation?" "Your house," he said. My stomach tightened. Olivia finally sat down. "Mom, this place is too much for you now." I stared at her. "This is my home." "We know," she replied, "but you're getting older. Maintaining a property this size isn't practical." Adrian leaned forward. "We found a wonderful senior community nearby. It's safe, comfortable, and fully managed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want me to move?" Olivia avoided my eyes. "We think it's the best decision." "For whom?" Neither answered. I slowly stood. "Your father died in this house." "I know." He held my hand in the bedroom upstairs. Olivia sighed. "Mom, memories aren't attached to buildings." "No," I said quietly. "But neither are people disposable because they're inconvenient." Adrian's expression hardened. "We're trying to help you." Then he opened a folder. Inside were documents, property estimates, senior living brochures, legal forms. They hadn't come to discuss anything. They had already made the decision. "We've started the paperwork," Adrian said. My hands began to shake. "I haven't agreed to anything." "You don't have to make this difficult." That sentence hurt more than anything else. I looked at my daughter. "Olivia, do you really want me out of my own home?" She hesitated, only for a second, then she nodded. "I think it's necessary." That night, after they left, I sat alone in Arthur's chair. I looked around the living room. For the first time, the house didn't feel like my sanctuary. It felt like something they were already preparing to take. 3 days later, Adrian returned with a property appraiser. He didn't even ask permission. The man measured walls, examined ceilings, checked plumbing, and scribbled numbers onto a clipboard. "These kitchen fixtures are outdated," he said. I stared at the tiles. Arthur had installed them himself. Olivia was 10 years old then. I remembered her sitting on the counter, swinging her legs while her father worked. Now those same tiles were being described as worthless. Then my neighbor, Helen Brooks, appeared at the back door carrying a plate of cookies. She stopped when she saw the stranger measuring my house. "What's happening?" Before I could answer, Adrian said, Family business. Helen looked directly at me. Are you all right? I forced a smile. I'll call you later. She nodded, but her worried expression remained. That evening, I found myself staring at an old photograph of Arthur. I don't know what to do. I whispered. For the first time since his death, I felt completely helpless. The following week, Adrian and Olivia returned with an attorney. The attorney placed a stack of papers on my dining table. Once you sign, he explained, the property transfer will be finalized. I adjusted my glasses. Transfer to whom? He paused. To your daughter. My heart sank. I read the first page, then the second, permanent irrevocable. They weren't helping me move. They were trying to take my house. I want my own attorney to review these. Adrian laughed. That's unnecessary. It isn't. His smile disappeared. You're becoming confused, Mrs. Bennett. I looked directly at him. My name is Grace Bennett. His expression tightened. And I'm perfectly capable of knowing what I'm signing. The attorney cleared his throat. Perhaps we should give her some time. Adrian ignored him. If you refuse, we'll have to consider whether you're still capable of managing your affairs. The rooms went silent. My own daughter sat beside him. She didn't defend me. She didn't even look surprised. I slowly pushed the documents back across the table. No, Adrian stood. You're making a serious mistake. No, I said, you are. I pointed toward the door. Get out of my house, they left, but I knew they weren't finished. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Around midnight, I walked into Arthur's study. I opened his desk. Most drawers contained ordinary things. Old receipts, pens, photographs, and letters. Then I noticed something strange. A narrow wooden compartment sat beneath the bottom drawer. I had never seen it before. My hands trembled as I searched the desk. Eventually, I found a tiny brass key inside an old investment book. I unlocked the compartment. Inside was a black folder. My husband's initials were written across the front. A. I opened it. The first document was a will. The second was an investment statement. Then another, and another. There were properties, accounts, stocks, partnerships, assets I had never known existed. I turned page after page. Then I saw the name of an apartment complex, Cedar Ridge Apartments. I recognized it immediately. Olivia and Adrian lived there. They had complained about their rent for years, but according to the document in my hands, they weren't renting from some anonymous corporation. They were renting from a company owned by Arthur, and that company was now mine. I sat down slowly. My entire understanding of my husband's life had just changed. At the bottom of the folder was an envelope. My name was written on it in Arthur's handwriting. I opened it with shaking fingers. The letter began. My dearest Grace. I stopped reading. Tears blurred the page. Arthur had known. He had prepared for the day when I would need protection. And beneath his final words was one sentence that made my heart pound. I never trusted Adrian. I read the letter again, then a third time. My husband had warned me that Adrian was ambitious, financially reckless, and willing to cross boundaries when desperate. Arthur had quietly built a financial shield around me. He had left me far more than a house. He had left me a legacy. And Olivia and Adrian had no idea who they were really dealing with. The next morning, I found a number on one of the investment statements. I called it. A woman answered. Westbridge Financial. This is Lauren Mercer, I swallowed. My name is Grace Bennett. My husband was Arthur Bennett. There was a brief silence, then Lauren said something that made my heart stop. Mrs. Bennett, we've been waiting for you. The next morning, I arrived at Westbridge Financial before 9. I barely slept the night before. Lauren Mercer was waiting for me in a private office. She was an elegant woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and the calm confidence of someone accustomed to handling serious matters. Mrs. Bennett, she said, standing, it's good to finally meet you. Please call me Grace, she smiled. Grace, then. I placed Arthur's folder on her desk. I found this yesterday. Lauren looked at the documents and nodded slowly. Arthur intended for you to find them eventually. You knew? I worked with your husband for more than 20 years. She opened her computer. He was extremely careful. He told us that you would never spend $1 on yourself if you believed someone else needed it more. A painful smile crossed my face. That sounds like me. He also told us to wait until you came to us voluntarily. Lauren turned the monitor toward me. Now, let me show you what Arthur actually left you. For the next hour, my understanding of my life changed completely. There were investment accounts I had never seen, commercial properties, apartment buildings, land outside town, stock portfolios, trusts, savings accounts, and then Lauren opened the records for Cedar Ridge Apartments. "You own this entire complex," she said. I stared at the screen. All of it, 12 units, fully occupied. My throat tightened. Olivia and Adrian live there. I know. Do they know? Lauren shook her head. They believe they're renting from a property management company. I sat back. How much are they paying? She gave me the figure. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the irony was overwhelming. For years, Adrian had complained about rent while unknowingly sending his payments directly into an account controlled by his wife's mother. Then Lauren became serious. There is something else. What? Arthur asked us to investigate Adrian before his death. My heart stopped. Why? He was concerned about his financial history. Lauren opened another file. Adrian had substantial gambling debts before he married Olivia. There were also failed investment ventures and several unresolved financial disputes. I remembered Adrian's expensive suits, his confident speeches, the way he always talked about opportunities. Suddenly, it all looked different. He's in trouble now, Lauren continued. How much trouble? His employer has been downsizing. According to our information, Adrian's position is unstable. I closed my eyes. That explained everything. The urgency, the paperwork. The pressure, the sudden concern about my age. They weren't trying to protect me. They were trying to access my house. What about Olivia? I asked. Lauren's expression softened. She appears to have followed his direction rather than planned this herself. That hurt almost more because it meant my daughter had trusted him more than she trusted me. What should I do? Lauren leaned back. That depends on what you want. I want to keep my home. You can. I want them to stop. You can do that too. I looked at her. And if I want to make sure they never have the power to do this again? Lauren smiled faintly. Then we begin by securing every asset and documenting every attempt they've made to pressure you. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than fear. I felt control. Before leaving, Lauren gave me copies of several documents. Don't confront Adrian yet, she warned. Why? Because desperate people become unpredictable when they realize their plan is failing. I nodded. On my way home, I stopped at the grocery store. Helen Brooks was choosing oranges near the produce section. The moment she saw me, she hurried over. Grace, I've been worried about you. I smiled. I've had a difficult week. Is your daughter really trying to move you out? I looked at her. She tried. Helen studied my face. And now things are different. She raised an eyebrow. You look different. How? Stronger. I smiled. Maybe I finally remembered who I am. That evening, I returned home and placed Arthur's folder inside a locked drawer. Then I watered his violets. For years, those flowers had reminded me of what I had lost. Now they reminded me of what Arthur had left behind. The next morning, I was drinking coffee when I heard vehicles outside. I looked through the window. A moving truck had stopped in front of my house. Behind it was another car. Olivia and Adrian stepped out. Several movers followed them. My heart began pounding. They hadn't called. They hadn't asked permission. They had simply arrived. I watched Adrian point toward the front door. The movers started carrying boxes. I set down my mug. Then I walked toward the living room. Adrian opened the door with the confidence of a man entering his own property. Good morning, Mrs. Bennett. I stared at him. What are you doing? We're helping you relocate. Olivia stepped inside behind him. Mom, please don't make this harder. I looked at my daughter. You brought movers without asking me. We're doing what's necessary. I almost felt sorry for her. She still didn't understand. Adrian motioned toward the movers. Start with the upstairs rooms. No, he turned. What? I said no. His expression hardened. You're going to cooperate. I walked to Arthur's study. For the first time, I wasn't afraid to open the drawer. I removed one document. Then I returned to the living room. Adrian was standing beside Olivia. He looked irritated. I held the paper between my fingers. Before anyone moves another box, I said, there's something you should know. What now? Adrian snapped. I looked directly at him. The apartment you're living in belongs to me. Olivia's face went blank. Adrian laughed. That isn't possible. It is. I handed him the document. His smile disappeared as he read it. Then he looked at me. This has to be some mistake. No, I said calmly. It isn't. Olivia grabbed the paper from his hand. Her eyes moved across the page. Then she looked at me. Mom, I took a breath. You came here to take my home. I pointed toward the door. But you forgot to ask who owned yours. Adrian's face had turned pale, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Adrian stared at the document as though the words might rearrange themselves. This is impossible. Olivia looked equally stunned. I folded my arms. No, it is simply something you didn't know. Adrian's face tightened. We pay rent every month. Yes, to a management company. Yes. And you're saying that company belongs to you. I'm saying the building belongs to me. Silence filled the room. One of the movers quietly stepped backward. Adrian looked at Olivia. She seemed unable to process what she had just learned. Mom, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell me you were trying to force me out of my home? Her eyes dropped. Adrian stepped forward. This changes nothing. We can still challenge the ownership. You can try. His jaw tightened. You think money makes you untouchable? No, I replied. I think truth makes me difficult to manipulate. The movers began gathering their things. Adrian turned toward them. Wait. I looked at him. They're leaving. He glared at me. This isn't finished. I agree. I picked up another document. You have 30 days to vacate Cedar Ridge. Olivia's face went pale. Mom, please. You wanted me to leave my home. I didn't know. You didn't ask. Her eyes filled with tears. Before she could say anything else, Adrian interrupted. This is ridiculous. Olivia, tell her she can't do this. Olivia looked at him. Then at me. For the first time, she seemed caught between the husband she had defended and the mother she had betrayed. I don't know anymore, she whispered. Adrian grabbed her arm. We're not leaving. I immediately stepped forward. Take your hand off my daughter. He released her, then Olivia suddenly placed a hand over her stomach. Mom, I noticed the tears running down her face. What is it? She took a shaky breath. I'm pregnant. The words stunned me. For several seconds I couldn't speak. A grandchild. After all the anger, all the betrayal, all the pain, that tiny piece of news broke through everything. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, she whispered. Adrian looked annoyed rather than happy. That was the moment something inside Olivia changed. She looked at him. You don't even seem happy. Of course I'm happy, he snapped. But his attention immediately returned to the property documents. I noticed so did Olivia. That afternoon, after Adrian finally left, Olivia remained behind. She sat at the kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a cup of tea. I don't know what happened to us, she whispered. I sat across from her. Then tell me the truth. She stared at the table. He lost his job 6 months ago. My heart sank. What? He told me the company was restructuring. He said he was working from home. Was he? She shook her head. He was hiding everything. Credit cards, loans, gambling losses, failed investments. Olivia confessed that Adrian had convinced her my house could solve their financial problems. He said we'd sell it, pay our debts, and start over. And you agreed? I believed him. She wiped her eyes. I thought he was trying to save us. I reached across the table. Why did you believe I was incapable of taking care of myself? Because he kept telling me you were becoming confused. I stared at her. Did you believe that? She hesitated. I wanted to, but at least it was honest. Then Olivia revealed something even worse. Adrian had me sign papers. What kind? Power of attorney documents, medical forms, property-related documents. I felt cold. Did you understand what you were signing? No, she began crying. He told me they were standard forms to help manage your affairs. I stood. Where are those papers? I don't know. We need to find them. The next morning, Olivia and I went to Cedar Ridge. The property manager, Marcus Hale, met us in the lobby. His expression was grim. There was an incident last night. What happened? Adrian came here. My stomach tightened. He was angry. He damaged one of the units. Olivia covered her mouth. Was anyone hurt? No. Police arrived before things got worse. Marcus handed me a key. His apartment is a mess. We went upstairs. The scene inside was shocking. A lamp had been smashed, a picture frame lay broken, papers covered the floor. Olivia slowly walked through the wreckage, then she stopped. There. She pointed toward Adrian's desk. A locked drawer had been forced open. Inside was a thick folder. She pulled it out, the label read, "By Bennett Property. Sale Plan." Her hands began shaking. She opened it. There were renovation estimates, property photographs, projected sale prices, and brochures from senior communities. They had planned everything: my forced relocation, the house renovation, the sale, even the amount they expected to make. Then Olivia found another envelope. She opened it. Her face went white. "What is it?" She handed me the papers. They were documents claiming I was mentally incapable of managing my finances. But there was something else. A signature, my signature, except I had never signed them. Olivia stared at the page. "Mom, it's forged." She covered her mouth. "I never knew. I believe you." We took everything. That evening, Lauren Mercer came to my house. She examined the documents carefully. "This changes the situation," she said. "How?" "Fora's attempted fraud, financial exploitation, and potentially more." Olivia looked terrified. "Can he go to prison?" "If the evidence is confirmed, yes." I looked at my daughter. She was carrying my grandchild. She was frightened. And despite everything, she was still my child. "What do we do now?" she asked. Lauren closed the folder. "We protect you first." Then she looked at Olivia. "And we make sure Adrian can never control you again." Olivia nodded. For the first time since this nightmare began, my daughter wasn't defending her husband. She was standing beside me. But none of us knew that Adrian had one final move planned, and it would force us into a courtroom. The morning after we discovered the forged documents, I woke before sunrise. I walked into the kitchen and made coffee in Arthur's old blue mug. For years, that simple routine had comforted me. That morning, it reminded me that I had survived worse things than fear. Olivia was still asleep upstairs. She had barely rested since discovering what Adrian had done. I was washing the coffee pot when my phone rang. It was Marcus Hale. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm sorry to call this early. What happened?" "There was an attempt to break into your house last night." My heart stopped. "Did anyone get inside?" "No." "A neighbor saw someone near the back door and called the police." "Did they identify him?" Marcus hesitated. "They believe it was Adrian." I looked toward the staircase. "Is he still there?" "No." Officers searched the area, but he was gone. I immediately called Lauren. She arrived less than an hour later with a private investigator named Daniel Foster. Daniel was a quiet man with sharp eyes and a thick file under his arm. "You need to understand something," he told us. "Adrian is desperate." He opened the file. "His financial problems are much worse than we thought." Olivia sat beside me. "How bad?" "His gambling debts go back years. He also had problems at his previous company." "What kind of problems?" I asked. Daniel looked at me. "Missing money." Olivia's face went pale. "You mean he stole?" "There were unexplained withdrawals from accounts he managed. The company avoided prosecution at the time, but he left under suspicious circumstances." Olivia covered her mouth. "He told me he resigned. He lied." Daniel continued. "The property he called an investment cabin is also in trouble." Olivia frowned. "What cabin?" "The one he purchased without telling you." Her eyes widened. "He took out a second loan against it." I looked at Lauren. "So he planned to use my house to cover his debts. That appears to be the case." Olivia slowly stood. "I can't believe I married this man." I reached for her hand. "You married the person he pretended to be." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I should have protected you." "You're protecting me now." Lauren closed the file. "We have two choices." "What are they?" "We can go to court immediately and pursue every charge." Olivia looked nervous. "And the second? Offer him one final settlement." I stared at her. Why would I give him anything? Because court proceedings can take months or years. You are not required to forgive him. You can simply decide that ending the danger is more important than winning every argument. Daniel nodded. "If he accepts, he leaves the state, gives up every claim to your property, and agrees never to contact either of you again." "And if he refuses?" Lauren's expression hardened. "Then we pursue everything." 2 days later, we sat in a conference room at Westbridge Financial. Adrian arrived with a young attorney. He looked exhausted. His expensive confidence was gone. Lauren placed a folder on the table. "Mr. Carter, these are the terms." Adrian glanced at me. "You're really doing this?" I didn't answer. "You're destroying your own daughter's marriage." Olivia looked directly at him. "You destroyed it." He turned toward her. "I did everything for us." "No," she said quietly. "You did everything for yourself." Lauren slid the agreement forward. "You will surrender all claims to Grace Bennett's property. You will sign the divorce documents. You will leave Riverton and remain at least 500 miles away. In exchange, your immediate debts will be settled, and you will receive a modest amount to establish yourself elsewhere." Adrian laughed bitterly. "You expect me to accept this? You have 24 hours. His lawyer whispered something. Adrian's face changed. He looked at Olivia. "We're having a baby." Olivia placed a protective hand over her stomach. "Our baby deserves a father who tells the truth." He stared at her, then at me. "You've turned her against me." "No," I said. "You showed her who you are." He stood abruptly. "This isn't finished." His attorney grabbed his arm. "Sit down." Adrian glared at him, but eventually he sat. The next morning he accepted, for the first time in months. Our home felt peaceful. Olivia moved permanently into the guest room. We began planning for the baby. She also made another decision. "I want to teach again," she told me one evening. "You should." I stopped because Adrian said my career wasn't important. I smiled. "You were always meant to teach." She rested her hand on her stomach. "I want my daughter to grow up seeing me stand on my own." "She will." A few weeks later, we converted the study into a nursery. Olivia found an old quilt while unpacking boxes. She held it up. I recognized it immediately. It was the blanket I had made for her when she was born. "You remember this?" I asked. She nodded. "You wrapped me in it whenever I was afraid." I touched the faded stitching. "Then your daughter can have it." Olivia smiled through her tears. "What should we name her?" I thought of Arthur. Then I thought of everything we'd survived. "Something that means new beginnings." She smiled. I was thinking Willow. My eyes filled with tears. "Because of Dad?" She nodded. "A little piece of him." I hugged her. "I think he'd love that." For the first time in years, my daughter and I felt like mother and child again. But peace didn't last. 2 months after Adrian left, Daniel called. His voice sounded different. "Grace, he's back." My stomach dropped. "What?" "He's been asking questions about you." "What kind?" "Your assets, Arthur's investments, the foundation of your estate." Olivia had gone pale. "He knows," she whispered. "Knows what?" "That there's more money than he realized." Lauren arrived immediately. "We need stronger protection." "What can we do?" She looked at me. "There's someone Arthur trusted." "Who?" "A judge named Marcus Anderson." The name stirred something deep in my memory. Lauren continued. "Arthur knew him for decades. Marcus has followed your situation carefully but never interfered. Why would he help now?" "Because he believes what happened to you should never have happened." The next afternoon, Olivia and I entered Judge Anderson's chambers. He stood when he saw me, his expression softened. "Grace Bennett." I smiled nervously. "Have we met?" He smiled. 30 years ago. I searched my memory, then suddenly I remembered a young law clerk, late nights, stackers of paperwork. A frightened young man who had almost abandoned his legal career. I had stayed late one night and helped him organize a complicated case. His name had been Marcus. He looked at me now. "You don't remember saving my career, do you?" My eyes widened. "You were that young clerk?" He nodded. "You gave me coffee, helped me organize the Harland case, and told me I belonged in the legal profession." I smiled. I was just doing my job. "No," Marcus said quietly. "You were showing kindness." Then his expression became serious. "Now I may finally have the opportunity to return it." I didn't know it yet, but the next morning I would walk into a courtroom, and someone from Arthur's past would walk through those doors with a secret that would change everything. The next morning, Olivia and I arrived at the courthouse before 9. Judge Marcus Anderson had asked us to meet him privately before the hearing. I could not stop thinking about what he had said. Someone from Arthur's past was coming. I wondered who. When we entered the courthouse, I noticed several unfamiliar faces sitting near the courtroom doors. Then I saw him. An elderly man in a dark suit stood beside a young woman carrying a leather briefcase. He looked directly at me, his eyes filled with emotion. "Grace!" I stopped. "Do I know you?" He smiled sadly. "My name is Samuel Reed." The name meant nothing to me. Then he said 6 words. "Arthur saved my life once." I stared at him. "What?" Samuel motioned toward a quiet corner. "We should talk before the hearing." Olivia and I followed him. Samuel opened the briefcase. Inside were photographs, contracts, bank records, and several handwritten letters. "I worked with Arthur for more than 25 years. He explained. "What kind of work?" "Investments. Property development. Private lending." I looked at the documents. Why did Arthur never tell me? Because he wanted you to live a normal life. Samuel handed me a photograph. Arthur stood beside 3 men in front of a construction site. He looked younger, confident, happy. "This was one of his first major developments," Samuel said. I studied the picture. "What does this have to do with Adrian?" Samuel's expression darkened. "Everything." He opened another file. "Years ago, Arthur discovered that someone was attempting to manipulate one of his investment companies." "Who?" Samuel looked at Olivia, then at me. "Adrian." Olivia's face went pale. "That can't be." "He was younger then, ambitious, clever. He worked with one of Arthur's associates." I felt a chill. "So Arthur knew him before he married Olivia?" "Yes, and he never told us. He hoped Adrian would change." Samuel handed me another document. He didn't. The document showed several suspicious transactions. Money had been moved through different companies. Property had been purchased under false names, and one company had been used to conceal gambling debts. I looked at Olivia. She was trembling. "Why didn't Dad stop him?" "Arthur tried." Samuel sighed. "He gave Adrian a chance to walk away. Instead, Adrian disappeared. Then he met me," Olivia whispered. "Yes, and Dad knew." Samuel nodded. "He was afraid that if he told you everything, you would defend your husband and destroy your relationship with your father." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "That sounds like Dad," Samuel continued. "Arthur spent years preparing for the possibility that Adrian might return." I looked at him. "What exactly did he prepare?" Samuel reached into the briefcase and removed a sealed envelope. "Your husband instructed me to give you this only if someone tried to take control of your estate." My hands shook as I opened it. Arthur's handwriting appeared immediately. "Grace, if you are reading this, someone has tried to take from you what I spent my life protecting." I pressed the letter against my chest. The next sentence made my heart race. "Do not fight them with anger. Fight them with facts." Arthur had attached instructions for everything: the investment accounts, the property records, the trusts, the companies, and one final document. A complete record of every financial transaction Adrian had made involving Arthur's businesses. Samuel looked at me. "Arthur didn't want revenge. What did he want?" "To make sure you were never helpless." I wiped my tears. Then the courtroom doors opened. Everyone inside. Olivia took my hand. We entered together. Adrian was already there. He looked different. His attorney sat beside him. Across the room sat Lauren, Daniel, Marcus, and Samuel. Adrian's eyes widened when he saw Samuel. "You." Samuel didn't respond. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Judge Anderson took his seat. He looked at me, then at Adrian. "This hearing concerns allegations of financial exploitation, attempted property fraud, forgery, and unlawful interference with Mrs. Bennett's estate." Adrian's attorney immediately stood. "Your Honor, my client denies these allegations." Marcus nodded. "Understood." Lauren presented the first evidence, the forged documents, then the property transfer forms, then the records from Cedar Ridge, then the surveillance footage showing Adrian attempting to enter my home. Each piece of evidence made the room quieter. Finally, Samuel stood. Adrian stared at him. "You can't do this." Samuel looked at the judge. "I can." He described Adrian's earlier financial dealings with Arthur. He explained how Arthur had discovered the fraudulent transactions. Then he produced the original records. Adrian's attorney requested a recess. The judge denied it. "We have waited long enough." Adrian suddenly turned toward Olivia. "Tell them you knew about the property." She stared at him. "I didn't. You knew your mother had money." "I knew she owned her house." "You knew about the investments." "No." Adrian's voice became desperate. "You're lying." Olivia stood. "No." Her voice shook, but she continued. "I lied to myself because I loved you." The courtroom fell silent. "But I will not lie for you anymore." Adrian looked at her as though she'd become a stranger. The judge turned toward me. "Mrs. Bennett, do you wish to make a statement?" I stood slowly. I looked at Adrian, then at Olivia, then at the judge. My husband spent his life protecting our family. I paused. I never understood how much until now. My voice strengthened. "I don't want revenge." Adrian looked surprised. "I want accountability." The judge nodded, then he said something I never expected. "Mrs. Bennett, there is one additional matter." He lifted a document. "This court has received evidence that your husband established a charitable trust shortly before his death." I stared at him. "A charitable trust?" "Yes." Judge Anderson looked at Samuel. Samuel nodded. "It was Arthur's final project." The judge continued. "The trust contains assets valued at more than $30 million. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Olivia looked at me. I couldn't breathe. $30 million. Arthur had never told me. But the judge wasn't finished. The trust names Grace Bennett as its sole controlling beneficiary during her lifetime. Adrian's face went completely white. He had spent months trying to steal one house. He had never realized that the woman he considered powerless controlled an empire. And now everyone in that courtroom knew it. But there was one final clause in Arthur's trust. A clause that would determine what happened next. The courtroom became completely silent. Judge Anderson held the trust document in his hands. "There is one final condition," he said. I felt my heart pounding. "What condition?" The judge looked directly at me. "Arthur required that if anyone attempted to unlawfully obtain control of your property, a portion of the trust would immediately be transferred into a protective foundation." I frowned. "A foundation?" Samuel smiled. "Yes." Judge Anderson continued. "The foundation is designed to provide housing, legal assistance, and financial support for elderly people facing exploitation by family members." I couldn't speak. Arthur had thought of everything. Even after death, he had found a way to turn our pain into protection for others. I looked toward the ceiling. "Arthur," I whispered. Olivia squeezed my hand. The judge turned toward Adrian. "Mr. Carter, the evidence presented today establishes a serious pattern of misconduct." Adrian's attorney lowered his head. The judge continued. "This court will refer the allegations of forgery, financial fraud, and attempted exploitation to the appropriate authorities." Adrian stood. "Your Honor, please." The judge raised his hand. "You have had opportunities to resolve this matter peacefully." Adrian looked toward Olivia. "Olivia, please." She stared at him through tears. "I wanted to believe you. I love you. You loved what you thought I could give you." He shook his head. "That isn't true." She took a breath. "You tried to take my mother's home. I was desperate. You lied to me. I was protecting us." "No," Olivia said. "You were protecting yourself." Adrian had nothing left to say. Officers approached him. As they escorted him from the courtroom, he looked back at me. For a moment, I expected anger. Instead, I saw defeat. The doors closed behind him. And just like that, months of fear were over. Not immediately. Healing never happens that quickly. But the danger was gone. Outside the courthouse, Olivia and I stood beneath the afternoon sun. She looked exhausted. "So what happens now?" she asked. I smiled. "Now we go home." She laughed softly. "Your home. Our home." She hugged me. "I don't deserve you." "Maybe not." She pulled away and looked at me. I smiled. "But you're still my daughter." That evening, we returned to the house. I opened the front door. Everything looked exactly as it had before. Arthur's chair, the old photographs, the blue mug, the flowers. But something had changed. The house no longer felt like a place I had been defending. It felt like a place I had reclaimed. Olivia walked into the kitchen. "Mom?" "Yes? I want to ask you something." "What?" "Would you let me stay here until the baby is born?" I smiled. "Of course." She looked relieved, then she touched her stomach. "I want Willow to know this house." I looked around. Your father would have liked that. Weeks passed. The legal process continued. Adrian's debts were investigated. The forged documents were examined. His financial records revealed far more than we had expected. Eventually, the authorities confirmed what we already knew. He had been manipulating accounts for years, but the most important thing was that Olivia was finally free. She filed for divorce. She returned to teaching. And slowly, she became the woman I remembered from before Adrian entered her life. Then, one rainy morning, her labor began. I drove her to the hospital. Hours later, I heard a newborn's cry. The nurse opened the door. "You have a beautiful granddaughter." My legs nearly gave way. When I entered the room, Olivia was holding the baby. She looked exhausted, but she was smiling. "Mom," she whispered. I approached the bed. She carefully placed the baby into my arms. I looked down, tiny fingers, soft cheeks, a little tuft of dark hair. "Hello, Willow," I whispered. Tears filled my eyes. For a moment, I imagined Arthur standing beside me. He would have been overwhelmed with joy. Olivia watched me. Dad would have loved her. He would have spoiled her. We both laughed. Then Olivia said something I'll never forget. "Mom, I understand now." "Understand what?" "Why Dad protected you." I looked at her. He knew I needed protecting. He knew you were stronger than you believed. I smiled. Maybe Arthur had known me better than I knew myself. Months later, I officially established the foundation Arthur had created. We named it the Arthur Bennett Legacy Foundation. Its first project was a small housing program for elderly people facing financial abuse. The first woman we helped reminded me of myself. She had been pressured by her son to sign over her property. When she came into my office, she was frightened. I held her hand. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." She began crying, and I realized why Arthur had left me that final responsibility. He hadn't simply wanted to protect me. He wanted me to protect others. One afternoon, I stood in the backyard watching Willow play beneath the old oak tree. Olivia sat beside me. "Mom," she said, "do you ever wish Dad had told you everything sooner?" I thought about it. Then I shook my head. "No." "Why?" "Because maybe I wouldn't have believed him." I looked toward the house. Sometimes people don't understand their own strength until life gives them no choice but to use it. Olivia smiled. "I learned that from you." I squeezed her hand. "No, you learned it from yourself." The sun began setting behind the trees. The same house Adrian had tried to take stood quietly behind us. The same walls, the same memories. But now there was laughter inside. A baby's laughter. My daughter's laughter. And mine. Arthur was gone, but his love remained in every corner, in the old blue mug, in the garden, in the photographs, in the foundation, and most importantly, in the family he had fought so hard to protect. I had once believed that losing my husband meant losing the strongest person in my life. I was wrong. Arthur hadn't left me helpless. He had left me prepared. And when the people closest to me tried to take everything I had built, they discovered something they never expected. They weren't dealing with a helpless old woman. They were dealing with Grace Bennett, a woman who had survived loss, a woman who had rebuilt her life, a woman who had finally learned her own worth, and a woman who would never again allow anyone to convince her that she was powerless.